Hi, I'm Noy, and welcome to the show. I wanted to do something different for season three. I wanted to add a little bit of, like I said, more current things. And so, what I had been doing recently during my hiatus from the show is I've been reading a lot. And it's because one night in the bedroom, myself, Alex, Mary, we were just reading, and no one said a word. We were just enjoying our books, and every now and then you would hear like a page turn or something like that. And I found that it was really, really relaxing, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. And so I I wanted to try to read at least one book a month, and so that's what I did. And obviously, I think I talked about it before, but one of my favorite books is The Stranger by Albert Camus, and I read it at least once a year just to keep myself grounded, just to appreciate everything that I already have, and try not to do anything stupid to compromise that or to try to prove to anybody. I always tell a lot of my friends that are buying things to show off, like new car or what have you. I'm like, stop trying to impress people you don't even like. And so that's what I gathered from the story, and I live humbly because of it. I am the Kanye West of humility, by the way. And so one of the books that I just got done reading was a book called The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down by Anne Fadiman. And it is about a young girl named Leah Lee, Leah or Laya. I'm not quite sure how that's pronounced, but I'm going to call her Leah for the sake of this. And she comes from a Hmong family, and I touched briefly on the Hmong people, the mountainous tribe people of Laos and southern China. And they are, I wouldn't say they're disconnected, but they're closer to nature than the rest of the Lao people are, and so they believe in spirits, and they believe that things happen because it's either like if you pass a tree and you don't say hello to an animal or something like that, or if you did something to an elder and you didn't apologize enough, you would just apologize profusely over and over and over again until the elder finally goes, all right, fine, you're forgiven, something like that. And that's a lot of Asian people. They're very spiritual, and you still see that to today. You know, if you talk to an elder Asian person and you mention that, oh my God, I saw a rabbit run across my car today, and suddenly they'll go, I need to go play the lottery. I need to play the rabbit number. What the hell is the rabbit number? I don't even know. But there's a number for a lotto number for every single animal. And so if you just on the off chance go, I saw a cat just walking across the door, tell that to an old Asian lady, she is gone. She is gone. She's gone to the corner store and she's buying the cat lotto number. It's just things like that. And so going back to Leah Lee, she was born to a Hmong family, and they moved to I think I'm not too familiar with Northern California, so I think it's Merced, California. And she had gotten sick, and she had gone to the hospital, and doctors diagnosed her with seizures. And so when her parents found out about this, they deemed it as a gift. They didn't think it was something that Westerners should try to cure. And so the book deals with conflicts between families' beliefs and Western medicine. And I got to give it to Anne Fadiman. She explains it on both sides. And she does it in such a way that she doesn't choose a side. She doesn't say this side is wrong. She doesn't say that the family's wrong. She doesn't say that the doctors are wrong. And she explains it, and puts it out kind of like a trial. And so she leaves you to decide on who you think is wrong. And oof, I just hit my hand on the table. That kind of hurt. And it's a really good read, and it's one of those books where it's like I've got to go to bed, but I got 2 more chapters, And so it's a really hard one to put down. And I do like that she does talk a lot about the family's background, how they lived in a house that was hand built. They all slept on a dirt floor, and when the babies were born, like their placentas were buried, on the very same floors that they slept on, or underneath the very same floors. They're not sleeping on placentas. I mean, that's just gross, Asian people. But yeah, Leah's condition, seizures or having epilepsy. The Hmong people deemed her to be special. They thought she had a gift, and so a lot of people with epilepsy, and you probably heard it in the Asian Taboo show, but they're treated differently, and some people are treated very well. Like Leah was actually thought she was gifted. The family thought that she was gifted, and they looked at her as if almost she was a shaman. A lot of times, and so the book deals with how the family sees it one way, whereas Western doctors see it another way. And side note on that, speaking of Asian taboos, weird things are, I do this to Alex all the time, and I did it to Mary when we first started dating too, is I would sniff their hair. And Mary thought it was weird, but I just told her it's endearing. It's something that I grew up doing. And my parents did it to me, my family did it to me. They would just smell my hair, and so I did it to Mary because I really liked her. I liked being around her, and so I just started sniffing her hair when we were sleeping. Not while she was asleep. Okay, maybe sometimes while she was asleep, but when Alex was born, that's all I would do is when he's asleep, I'm holding him, I would sniff his hair. To this day, I would just take I would just sniff his hair. I don't care how sweaty he was. That's my boy. But I found out that later on, it's a pheromone thing. It's to identify family members, and so when a dog comes up and sniffs your hand. It can tell from the pheromones that you're giving out that you're not a threat. And so when I would, hug a family member, I'd take a deep breath, and just to get that pheromone, that familiarity, so I know this is my family member. And some studies were done. I forget right off the top of my head. I read this years back, but kids who were adopted, a male and a female, when they come across each other, they find this weird attraction to each other. It's almost sexual. And a lot of times they find out that they're related. And so it's because of that pheromone that says, hey, this is a person that you love. This is the person that you want to be with. And unfortunately, sometimes they take it a little bit further than they probably should, but they didn't know any better, So the family pheromone and the love pheromone is pretty much almost the same. And so I just thought that was an interesting thing that Asians do. I'm not sure if other people do it, but I've only seen Asian people do it, is sniffing each other's heads. And so I just wanted to bring that side note onto this before we go back to the book. And going back to it, like I said, Ann Fetterman did a really good job about the history of the family and how they came over, and a lot of Asian or Lao groups after the Vietnam War, after Vietnam took over Laos, they pretty much raided the CIA office and found out that a lot of the Hmong people were recruited by the U.S., by the CIA, to help the CIA defeat Ho Chi Minh, I suppose. And so they were deemed the enemy. They were deemed war criminals. And so they would be persecuted, hunted down, executed, I suppose. And that includes my father. He was a soldier in the Royal Lao Army, and he fought, on the behalf of the king. And so he inadvertently helped the United States. And because he had signed up to do that, his name was found in the CIA offices, as well as my uncle's, and my uncle who lives in the United States. I'm not going to say where, but he lives here, and he was a member of Air America. And so they are deemed war criminals to this day. My dad is not allowed to set foot in Laos. And that's unfortunate because a lot of my dad's side of the family lives there. My grandfather and grandmother passed away. He couldn't go. He got a phone call that said, "Hey, your dad's gone, and your mom's gone," or those times, and he would just there's nothing he could really do. He can send money back to the family, but that's about it. He couldn't attend the weddings, or he couldn't attend the funerals. Even when he married my stepmother, she lived in Laos at the time, but she had to cross the border to Thailand. So he had to essentially meet her at the border in Thailand. He was on Thailand. She was in Laos. She had to cross over so that they can get married, and then he can bring her over here. So he was. My dad is a Vietnam War veteran, and I never forget that. Veterans Day and Memorial Day, we honor a lot of soldiers. I honor my dad because, again, he was a Vietnam War veteran. He was a POW. He was captured, and he got out. But unfortunately, he can't go back to his home country. He can't be buried there. He can't, like I said, visit family. They would have to cross the border to Thailand, and it's an awful thing. My dad's side are still a bunch of dirt poor farmers. They live in a small village, and if you had to call them, you would have to call the post office, ask for such and such, and then they would tell you to call back about an hour later, and then the postman would go get whoever and bring them back to the post office, and then you would have to wait for that phone call. And unfortunately, sometimes other people take longer than they're supposed to, and so you have to wait. And so if my dad calls the post office again and it's busy, well, he's just gonna have to keep trying until the other person hangs up, because it's the only phone line there is. And so I hear about that, and then I hear about my 5G not working properly, and I'm like, yeah, I'm ungrateful. And so every time I do something, or if I say something, or I feel a certain way, I think about things like that. Like my aunt recently passed away. She had jaundice, and something like that. Something that's, I wouldn't say it's curable in the U.S., but she definitely could have gotten more help if she was in the U.S. But my dad said, yeah, she waited in the hospital in Laos, and if you don't have money, if you can't pay for treatment, they'll just move on to the next person. And so we would have to wire money over. They would get the money, and then they would pay the doctor, and then the doctor goes, oh, there you are, you exist now, let me help you. And by then, hey, unfortunately, it might be too late. And so my aunt passed away from something that could have been prevented or cured. I don't know. I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm pretty sure she would have been better off had she lived in the U.S. things like that. And so I think about that, and I'm very grateful. And then when Alex sits here and tells me that he's bored, I go, look around you, man. You have an Xbox, you have a Switch, you have a ton of Legos, you have tons of books. Find something to do. Only boring people are bored. And so I just wanted to get this rant off my chest because I'm probably holding it in for quite some time. And now I feel better. Thank you for joining NPR. But back to the book. Jeez, I keep getting off this topic. It's a really, really good book. I'm telling you, it's a really good book, and I keep getting off topic. And so the fight goes back and forth between Leah's family and her doctors, and neither of them are willing to say, okay, how about we try this, or how about we do. It's just that, nope, this is my way. This is how I'm going to do it. And so one day Leah has a seizure, and the doctors say, hey, she's having seizures more and more. She's epileptic, and the doctors are saying we need to put her in the hospital. And Leah's family is just saying, no, the spirit just caught her, and that's why she fell. A spirit is possessing her. She's having convulsions because she's getting messages from the other side. And it gets so bad to the point that Leah had to be removed from the house by Child Protective Services because her doctors, they took in a Hippocratic oath that this is my patient. I have to do everything I possibly can to save my patient. And so they called Child Services on the Lee family, and Leah was taken away. And then, unfortunately, she had a massive seizure, and it left her in a persistive vegetative state. And that's when the two sides finally got together and said, we need to stop bickering, and it's not about our beliefs anymore. It's about saving this young girl. And unfortunately, it was too late. And Leah eventually passed away. They kept her alive for a very long time. But there's really nothing there, unfortunately. And so lessons learned, I guess, by the family and the entire community, as well as the medical community. They again, there's lawsuits and stuff, but it really comes down to the fact that you need to be open to the idea of maybe Western medicine is a good thing. Maybe Eastern medicine is a good thing. Everybody keeps saying laughter is the best medicine. Where did that come from? There's no prescription for laughter, so a doctor can't write you a prescription for laughter. So it comes from just the fact that you need to breathe. Oxygen keeps the body healthy. When you're laughing, you're inhaling and exhaling really, really fast, and that's just getting oxygen into your body. So when you say laughter is the best medicine, then you're not really prescribing anything, but you're also saying that oxygen is good for you. You're using a quip to be scientific, and I guess that's kind of meeting halfway, I suppose. And again, really, really good book. It's called A Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down, and it's by Anne Fadiman. And it's probably a book that I would not read again because it was kind of close to home. Again, like I said, I know a lot of family members who have disabilities and who are cared for by their parents, their entire lives. And so it was one of those books where it was very, very interesting, and it was a great book. I highly recommend it, but I myself probably wouldn't read it again. because it hits so close to home. Like, for instance, I won't watch Black Hawk Down again. I watched it once. I saw a bunch of the scene where the soldiers are dragged through the streets. I couldn't watch that because I knew so many service members. I was very close to so many service members, and that scene to me was a little too real. And so I can't watch that movie ever again. Although one of my favorite songs is from there, and so I still listen to that at least. And that's probably the song I want to pass away to. Fun fact. But again, definitely check out the book "A Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down" by Anne Fadiman. Let me know what you think about it, because this is a book club. I'm not sure if it's brought to you by Audible. I'm not sponsored by Audible. But that's it for today. Next week, I'm going to talk about the anime Initial D and how it changed my life and how the soundtrack to that changed my life. It was my entire college soundtrack. And how I bought a 1987 Toyota Corolla GTS hatchback for $800. And when I left California, I sold it for a little over $3,000. And to this day, that very same car, you can probably get $10,000 for it. And I'll explain why. Till then, I'm Noi. Catch me on Instagram at HiI'mNoiPod, as well as Twitter at KingCotto81. But other than that, I've got nothing left. It's late. I am very tired. I worked a 11-hour shift, and I just decided, why not make a podcast right now? So I'll talk to you guys next week. All right.